Anxious times, and we as preachers have a very important responsibility to respond, to provide the opposite of anxiety, if you will, stability and hope and trust. And I can think of no other better place to go than to the book of Psalms. There are other places, yes, but you can't go wrong in looking at the messages of the Psalms because you think about what all the psalmists went through. I mean, it's amazing the ups and downs. In fact, the Psalter is a book of extremes. It's a book where you have praise, extreme language regarding praise, exalting the mountains and the hills and the valleys and the rivers, all praising God. I mean, just exalted, extreme language. Then on the other hand, you have laments, extreme language. My God, why have you forsaken me? And language like, how long will you let me be alone? So you have these extremes. And the Psalms and the psalmists are able to navigate those extremes. That's why I think the Psalter is so important. And one of the places, I would say, an important place to start is with Psalm 1. And you would want to consider other Psalms as well, I'm sure. But Psalm 1 is intentionally placed at the beginning of the Psalter to kind of set the stage, if you will, to set the tone for what this is all about, this whole book. And Psalm 1, the psalmist who wrote it, is very familiar with these extremes, ups and downs, highs and lows, praises and laments, and crying out to God. The psalmist in Psalm 1 knows these extremes. And so just a moment here in looking at some brief ideas about this psalm. The psalm begins, and I'm reading here from the ESV, at least verses 1 and 2. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight, that is the delight of the righteous, is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. There is this contrast between the righteous and the wicked. The contrast in this Psalm 1 between two different ways, the ways of the righteous, the ways of the wicked. And the way of the wicked, as you see from verse 1, is that it is a lot about busyness, a lot about action, walking, sitting, standing. And they're constantly on the move. Good old American lifestyle, constantly moving, constantly going forward. And then you have the contrast in verse 2 with the righteous. The righteous is one who meditates on God's law, meditates day and night on that law. Quite a contrast. All these active verbs, and then you have a pretty passive verb, meditate. It reminds me of that contemporary American proverb, a rolling stone gathers no moss. In American culture, that's a very positive image. That means you're going forward, you're doing something, you're accomplishing something. You've got, you're getting more and more. You're getting more and more stuff, more and more material things, walking, standing, sitting. And then, so that's a positive image, that particular proverb. There is a culture in which that is a negative image, because a rolling stone really isn't very deep. It doesn't have much to offer. In this particular culture, and I'm talking about the English culture in England, this particular culture, what is really a positive image is a stone in a babbling brook that is surrounded by elegant, beautiful moss. There is depth, there is beauty to that stone that has stayed there for ages and ages and gained beauty over that time. I would say that is the image of the righteous that this psalmist is describing. They are those who are stable even during the worst of storms. And then you know the way the rest of the psalm goes. Verses 3 and 4 really contain the center image in this psalm, the tree and the chaff. They, the righteous, are like trees planted by streams of water, which yield their fruit in its season, and their leaves do not wither. In all that they do, they prosper. The wicked, in contrast, are not so. They are like chaff that the wind drives away. Do you hear that contrast again? You have chaff, the wicked, on one hand, that is just kind of blows with the wind, goes wherever the wind goes, is directionless. It's kind of like a fireworks that you shoot off, and it's beautiful, right, for just a few seconds, and then it fizzles out. But then you have the righteous, on the other hand, that are like trees planted by streams of water. They do not wither, and they bear fruit, and they have stability. They have deep roots. And that's what it really means to prosper. This psalmist is not talking about material prosperity. No, he knows the rest of the Psalter very well. There are a lot of downs. There are a lot of extreme disappointments in life. But this prosper that he talks about, they, in all they do, they prosper, is about their stability and their relationship with God. And so the winds and the storms may come and the tree may blow back and forth, but because its roots are deep, it's deeply rooted in a relationship with God, it will not be moved. That's a very important image. And one more thing here, too, in terms of a contrast. And I think this is important for especially this day and time that we are going through. And that is the definition of who is righteous and who is wicked. My definition is that the righteous are those who disadvantage themselves for the sake of advantaging others. The wicked are those who disadvantage or who advantage themselves for the sake of disadvantaging others. This is a time in our culture where it would be very easy to try to take advantage of others. And it'd be very difficult to disadvantage myself for the sake of trying to advantage and help others. But the person who is stable, who has deep roots, can do that by the grace and the strength of God. I hope this may stimulate you to find ideas that will help in providing stability, in providing hope for your congregations.